friends, pilots, history enthusiasts. Buckle up and prepare for a journey into the stormy skies of World War II. What you are about to read is not just a dry historical account. This is a story of desperation, genius, and a machine that was never meant to be. A story that challenges everything you thought you knew about Soviet aviation. This is the epic tale of the Pe-3, the fighter that was forced into existence. Stay with me until the end. I promise you, the conclusion will leave you speechless. Don't forget to smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into forgotten history. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine it is August 1941. The nights are getting colder. Moscow is holding its breath, a city plunged into an unnatural, fearful darkness by the blackout. The air raid sirens have become a grim lullaby. And then you hear it, a distant, persistent, low-frequency drone high above, a sound that chills the blood. It's a German reconnaissance plane, a Focke-Wulf FW-189 Rama, or perhaps a Junkers Ju-88. It's up there, right now, weaving its invisible patterns in the ink-black sky, photographing your defenses, your troop movements, your very heart. And you can't do a thing about it. The searchlight beams sweep the heavens, clumsy fingers of light grasping at nothing. The anti-aircraft guns fire blind, their shells exploding in useless, beautiful blossoms of fire far from their target. And our heroic single-engine fighters, the Yaks and MiGs, are grounded by the night. They're day fighters, falcons built for speed and agility in the light. They lack the range to patrol for hours, the radar to see in the dark, the second crew member to act as a navigator, those essential night eyes. This was the reality. A gaping hole in our air defense. A crisis that was costing us the war, one piece of intelligence at a time. It is in this cauldron of despair that a legend of improvisation was born. Not from a clean drawing board, but from the brutal necessity of survival. The Soviet Union needed a long-range, heavy fighter interceptor, and it needed it yesterday. There were projects on paper, of course, the Ta-3, the MiG-5, the TS, beautiful dreams of dedicated destroyer aircraft. But dreams don't win wars. Metal does. And in October 1941, the State Defense Committee issued an order that sounded almost insane. Take a proven frontline bomber, the Pe-2, and turn it into a fighter. And do it not in a year, not in a month, but in 7 days. Let that sink in. 7 days. Most of us take longer to plan a vacation. This was to redesign, re-engineer, and repurpose a complex war machine. The team at Factory Number 39, working around the clock under the leadership of Vladimir Petlyakov Design Bureau, didn't just meet this impossible deadline. They embodied the sheer, stubborn will to live. They didn't build a new plane. They performed emergency surgery on an existing one. They remembered the Pe-2's secret ancestry. Before it was a Peshka, the affectionate nickname for the Pe-2, meaning pawn, it was designed as a high-altitude fighter, the 6-100. The fighter DNA was there, buried under bomb racks, and a different mission profile. So, they began the transformation. The crew, they removed the radio operator/gunner's cabin. The crew was reduced from 3 to 2, a pilot and a navigator. This was a brutal but necessary trade-off. The freed-up space inside the fuselage was a godsend. The fuel. Into that space went additional fuel tanks. 700 liters of precious aviation fuel. This one change skyrocketed the aircraft's range to an incredible 2,150 kilometers. This was no longer a short-range bomber. It was becoming a long-endurance hunter. The guns, the nose armament was strengthened. Out went the standard 7.62 millimeters SHKS machine gun, and in went a second 12.7 millimeters Berezin BK heavy machine gun. Now, the nose packed a punch with 2 BKs and a 20 millimeters SHVK cannon. For rear defense, a fixed SHKS was mounted in the tail cone, a somewhat clumsy but better-than-nothing solution. The bombs. The internal bomb bay was eliminated. The new bird would carry its ordnance, up to 500 kilograms, on 4 external hardpoints. And just like that, in 1 week of frenzied work, the Pe-2 Pe-2 bomber ceased to exist. In its place stood the Pe-3, a heavy fighter. It was raw, it was unfinished, it had a list of problems longer than its wingspan. But it was there, and in the autumn of 1941, there was all that mattered. Petlyakov Pe-2, the destroyer, an unlikely rivalry. Now, to understand the Pe-3, we must look at its intended prey and its direct counterpart, the infamous German Zerstörer destroyer, the Messerschmitt Bf-110. This was a purpose-built, formidable machine that had cut a swath through Europe. When you line up the spec sheets, the story that emerges is not the one of simple Soviet inferiority we often hear. Let's break it down, not with cold tables, but with a pilot's understanding. Power and weight. Both planes had 2 engines, each producing around 1,100 horsepower. So, a total of 2,200 horses for each. But here's the catch. The Pe-3 was a heavyweight. Its normal takeoff weight was around 8,200 kilograms, while the Bf-110C-4 was a comparatively svelte 7,100. That's a difference of over 1,000 kilograms. On one hand, this meant the Pe-3 was less nimble. On the other, that mass translated into a more robust airframe and, crucially, space for all that extra fuel. Performance, the devil in the details. Speed down low. Surprisingly, the heavier Pe-3 was faster at lower altitudes, clocking 460 to 475 km/h against the Bf-110's 430 to 450. Speed up high. This is where the Pe-3's high-altitude heritage shone. At 5,000 meters, it could reach 530 to 540 km/h, outpacing the German plane's 515. For hunting high-flying reconnaissance planes, this was a critical advantage. Service ceiling. The German plane could climb higher, to about 10,500 meters versus the Pe-3's 9,200. The Bf-110's engines retained power better at the absolute Songshan. The deciding factor, endurance. This is the heart of the matter. The Pe-3 wasn't designed to be a dogfighter. It was designed to be a guardian. Range. The Pe-3 had a ferry range of 2,150 kilometers. The Bf-110, 1,200. Combat radius. The Pe-3 could operate 800 to 1,000 kilometers from its base. The Bf-110, 500 to 700. Patrol time. This is the knockout blow. The Pe-3 could loiter over a combat zone for 3.5 to 4.5 hours. The Bf-110 could only manage 2.5 to 3.5. The German Zerstörer was a scalpel designed for precise, powerful strikes as a bomber escort. The Pe-3 was a scythe designed to sweep vast areas of sky for hours on end, a flying command post that could direct other fighters and coordinate air defense. Its main weapon wasn't just its guns, it was its incredible persistence. Armament. Brute force versus practicality. The Bf-110C-4 had a terrifying forward-firing arsenal. 220mm MG-FF/M cannons and 4 7.92mm MG-17 machine guns. The early Pe-3 had 1 20mm SHVK and 2 12.7mm BKs. On paper, the German wins. But war isn't fought on paper. The Pe-3's armament was adequate for its primary mission, shredding unarmored reconnaissance planes and bombers. Trial by fire, the crucible of the night. But specifications mean nothing until the rubber meets the runway and the guns meet the night. The Pe-3's true baptism of fire was not against German fighters, but against the absolute darkness itself. Imagine this. You are a young pilot, sitting in a cold, dark cockpit. Your navigator has guided you to the target area after an hour of blind flying. You spot the faint silhouette of a Heinkel against the starry sky. Your heart pounds. You close in, your finger tightening on the trigger. You fire, and you are blinded. The muzzle flashes from your own nose guns are like 1,000 camera flashes going off in your face. For precious seconds, you see nothing but purple and green spots. The target is gone. The night has swallowed it. This was a catastrophic, unforeseen flaw. The solution? Flame dampers. A simple piece of equipment, but its absence had rendered the aircraft nearly useless in its primary role until it was installed. Then there were the searchlights. If you were caught in a beam, the cockpit canopy would turn into a perfect mirror, reflecting your own terrified face back at you. The solution? Blackout curtains for the cockpit. And in a stroke of genius, the Pe-3 became the first Soviet aircraft to be fitted with ultraviolet instrument panel lighting, a soft, purplish glow that illuminated the dials without destroying the crew's night vision. In the midst of the chaos of 1941, with the enemy at the gates, someone was thinking about the ergonomics of night fighting. The Pe-3 was more than a weapon. It was a flying laboratory, a test bed where the brutal science of night combat was being written in real time. The relentless evolution, the Pe-3 bis. The combat reports came back, and they were unambiguous. The basic Pe-3 was too vulnerable. By the spring of 1942, an upgraded version was rolling off the production lines, the Pe-3 bis. This was the machine the Pe-3 was always meant to be. Armor. They added 55 millimeters of armor glass to the windshield. They gave the pilot and navigator armored seatbacks. They protected the oil tanks. For the first time, the crew had a fighting chance. Armament, again. The nose armament was boosted with two 12.7 millimeters BK cannons and a 20 millimeters SHVK. In the dorsal position, they installed a flexible 12.7 millimeters UBT machine gun, a devastating defensive weapon. The ammunition supply was increased by almost a third. Payload. It could now carry up to 1,000 kilograms of bombs on its external hardpoints, making it a potent light bomber or ground attack aircraft. The Pe-3 bis was a truly versatile machine. An interceptor, a reconnaissance plane, an escort fighter, a bomber. It was a testament to the adaptability of the original design. Yet, its production numbers remained small. The harsh economics of total war. Why the Pe-3 never went mass. This is the central, tragic paradox of the Pe-3. It was a good, even excellent machine for its niche. So why were only about 360 built, while the Il-2 Sturmovik saw over 36,000? The answer lies in the cold, hard math of total war. Cost and labor. A twin-engine aircraft is a luxury. It requires two engines, two propellers, a more complex and heavier airframe. In the time it took to build one Pe-3, a factory could produce 2 or 3 single-engine Yakovlev or Lavochkin fighters. When your cities are being bombed and your armies are retreating, you don't need a few hundred sophisticated hunters. You need thousands and thousands of simple, reliable fighters to gain air superiority. The resource allocation was a strategic, not a tactical decision. The shifting nature of the air war, the Luftwaffe adapted. They stopped sending lone reconnaissance planes and started flying large, well-protected bomber formations. A handful of Pe-3s were useless against such armadas. The war demanded masses of agile, single-engine dogfighters. The jack-of-all-trades curse. The Pe-3 could do many things, but it was the master of none. It couldn't outturn a Bf-109, and it couldn't outbomb a Pe-2. In a war of immense scale and specialization, being pretty good at several roles often means you're not the first choice for any of them. A legacy forged in necessity. The story of the Pe-3 is the story of an entire class of aircraft, the heavy fighter. Even its successful German rival, the Bf-110, became a sitting duck without fighter escort later in the war. The truly successful twin-engine fighters, like the British de Havilland Mosquito, relied on revolutionary wooden construction and blistering speed to survive. The Pe-3 was not a Mosquito. It was not a glamorous ace-maker. It was a child of crisis, a testament to the fact that in the darkest hours, you fight with what you have, not with what you wish you had. It was a symbol of Soviet resilience and engineering ingenuity, a stopgap measure that stood in the breach when there was nothing else. It was, in the most profound sense, an involuntary fighter, a machine born from desperation that, against all odds, learned to soar, to hunt, and to protect the motherland in its hour of greatest need. Its story is one of imperfection, improvisation, and ultimate, quiet heroism. So what do you think? Was the Pe-3 a worthy endeavor or a misallocation of precious resources? Could its concept have worked better if developed earlier? I want to hear your opinions, your theories. Let's get a real discussion going in the comments below. And if this deep dive into aviation history got your propeller spinning, do the right thing. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss our next adventure into the unknown.